This video is going to look at preparing for Edexcel A Level Business exams. So if you are watching this video, you're probably aware that A Level Edexcel Business has 4 themes, and those 4 themes are assessed obviously in the exams. Paper 1 covers themes 1 and 4, paper 2 covers themes 2 and 3, and paper 3 is a synoptic paper that covers all of the themes. Papers 1 and 2 are weighted slightly heavier than paper 3. Each exam is 100 marks in 2 hours, which gives you about a minute per mark with 20 minutes reading and planning time. And I can't emphasise that enough. Right, you might want to take slightly longer reading and planning, because the best answers will have read the case study thoroughly and will have planned answers in advance. It's better to have a shorter answer that has been well planned based on a really thorough reading of the case study than sort of half reading the case study and writing a long rambling answer that changes focus halfway through. So yeah, really make use of reading and planning time. The formats of papers 1 and 2 are exactly the same. Papers 1 and 2 each has 2 case studies, and then these are the mark tariffs for the questions. Paper 3 is slightly different. It's still got 2 case studies, but rather than 2 4-mark questions, there is an 8-mark question in each case study. But the 10, 12 and 20-mark questions can all follow a very the structure for answering these questions is the same between the papers. There are 4 assessment objectives in business. I won't go into these in detail, but at the base is really understanding. AO1 is knowledge, making sure you know everything that's in the spec. AO2 is application. You need to read the case study carefully, decide what knowledge that you can apply in the context given to you, and then analysis and evaluation. Analysis is really about explaining something, and evaluation is about looking at the importance of different pieces of evidence and using that to come to an informed judgment about what business should do. What you need to think about in the exam is that you are a business consultant. You need to think that you're being paid by the business to give them advice about what they should do. So you analyse their situation, you look at where they are, and then you advise them based on their internal and external circumstances. What should that business be doing? And if you do that well, you will come out with a good grade. So how should you prepare for the exams? Well, number 1, you need to make sure that you have a copy of the specification and that you learn all the key terms. Now, this is the specification, okay, and you can see that it tells you exactly what you need to know. Now, I can, as a teacher, I go through these with my students. I think I've done a great job. I think I've covered everything. And then we test something and it turns out the students don't know, dynamic markets, online retailing. Okay, I think I've done a great job in teaching it. But there's a gap in terms of what students actually know, and it's very difficult for your teacher to know what you know and what you don't. So it's really your responsibility to make sure that you have covered all of these things and you learn them all. You've got definitions, you've got formulas, etc. So downloading a copy of the spec from the website, which is here. All right, it's a Pearson, Edexcel a Pearson company, but you can easily just Google Edexcel A Level Business and come to this page here. And there's loads of materials for you to download. First one of which for you to get is the specification, and indeed you can start using that specification right from the start of the course, ensuring that you have got a glossary of key terms, flashcards, whatever it is that you're making. Now, when you're revising, I could do, there's endless videos on effective revision methods. The key thing to remember is revision should be effortful, right? Rereading your notes or just rereading a book is useless. Okay, you need to actually test yourself on that stuff. So using flashcards, reading a book, closing it, putting it to one side, writing down what you remember, testing yourself is really, really important. As I say, there's loads of videos on effective revision methods, so please check them out and make sure that you are doing revision that is effective. Okay, I suppose my main tip is to use past papers, and that includes the AS papers, right? So you can get to the end of year 1 of the course covering themes 1 and 2, and there's a whole bunch of AS papers that cover that content. So you can be doing that by the end of year 1. All right, those AS papers are a really good resource. All right, and and from sort of January of year 2, you'll probably have enough knowledge to start looking at the full A-level papers. I suggest that you practice responding in exam conditions. So what does that mean? It means you get a copy of the exam, and you maybe time yourself an hour. So this is the 2019 paper. Right, you can see that it starts with the case study, and then it's got the questions. So a really effective way to revise isn't necessarily to do the full 2-hour exam, although that can be useful in itself, but maybe the most useful thing is to time yourself an hour, recreate exam conditions as best you can, and answer the first half of the paper. That's going to be really important. Like if I'm an athlete preparing for an event, I would be wanting to recreate the conditions of that event as best as possible. And so, phone away, quiet space, uninterrupted for an hour, and have a go at answering half an exam paper. Once you've done that, it's really important that you get feedback on your work soon afterwards. Okay, it's less effective if you maybe do like 3 past papers and then you go and wave them at your teacher and say, I need these marked. Right, that's not going to be any good for your teacher, and it's not going to be any good for you either, because there's just too much there to go through. So sitting half an exam paper, all right, marking it yourself using the mark scheme initially will be helpful, but the most useful thing I think that you can do is really make use of some of the resources on the Edexcel website, and you can use a method called comparative judgment to see how you've done. So what do I mean by that? So if you have a look at the Edexcel website, right, you can hit exam materials, and you can see that there's multiple exam materials here. I'm just seeing they've uploaded the June 22 stuff. I'm recording this in April 23. So you've got all of this stuff. You've got examiners' reports, mark schemes, question papers. So how can you use the examiner's report? So you do the past paper, all right, have a look at the mark scheme to see what they suggest that you answer, but the most useful thing to do is look at the examiner's report. All right, so this is the examiner's report for 2019. It tells you a bit about how students responded in general, but the most useful thing is they give you some actual student responses. So this one got 10 marks. I think it was a 12-mark question. All right, so that's really helpful. So that's a pretty decent response, but even more useful might be to check out the 5-mark response. Okay, why might that be useful? So that gives you a comparative judgment, right? You can think, okay, well, is mine better than the 5-mark one? All right, somewhere in the middle, 5 marks out of 12. Is it better? Well, I probably got more than 5 marks out of 12. Or is it about the same? In which case you probably got about 5 marks out of 12. So it's easier for you to get an idea of how you've done by comparing to an actual marked answer. So what I'm encouraging my students to do is really try to take responsibility for marking their own work, because you can get that feedback straight away, and you've got all of these resources to help you. So good luck in your preparation for the exams, and I'll upload some content on how to analyse and evaluate